Now, please welcome Chief Digital Officer, Lufthansa Group, Dr. Christian Langer, in discussion with Skift Aviation Business Editor, Brian Summers.
Good afternoon. Thanks all for being here. I'm the airline business reporter at Skift. I have a lot of interesting airline questions. But the first one is pretty broad, because I cover this stuff all the time, and not even I am sure exactly what you do. So what does the Chief Digital Officer do at an airline?
I don't know it either, but we have a CIO, and a very cool one. And of course, we need our legacy IT to run the business smoothly. So that's important. But end of last year, we decided that we have to take care of the digital business. We are carrying something like 300,000 people per day. And how can we connect closer with them? How can we really give them the best experience? How can we deal with the new business models growing up there? So we decided to set up one core center figure, my job now is to coordinate all the digital activity throughout the group, get inspiration from the outside, think about new trends, think about new business models, and then try to push it through the organization. So CIO, CDO work very closely related. I'm doing the what, and he's doing the who. I'm doing the what, and he's doing the how.
Okay.
That's the translation. So.
But this is not the taxi business, right? People try to start new airlines, new businesses, and almost always they fail. It just seems like a business with so many barriers to entry that nobody's going to come and disrupt it. But do you feel differently?
We feel different because we have been disrupted by the low-costers. We didn't take them serious 2 decades ago, and now we are where we are. So we know how disruption feels like, and we don't want to have this feeling again. But you're right, we are an asset-heavy industry. So we have very expensive assets, we have very complex assets. So the core idea for us is how would a digital business look like in a very asset-heavy industry, a very asset-complex industry. But I'm sure that people are thinking about how they could take parts, the interesting parts of our business away. So how can they take the customers away from us? This I'm sure companies are thinking about, and we are too.
Who do you think you could lose your customers to? How would it work?
You know, we are an aviation group, so we don't, we have all the airline business, but we as well have cargo business and catering business and MRO, so repairing and overhauling aircraft. And in MRO, for example, we experience it right now. It's the OEMs, engine OEMs, for example, they produced their engines and sold them to the airlines, and then we came and maintained them with Lufthansa Technik in that respect. But so we had all our maintenance contracts, we earned good money with that. But what they did now for the last years, it's with the new engine types, they get all the data feeds online, real time, from the aircraft down in their computational centers, and they do calculation about the next best maintenance event.
Okay.
And now they take away all the airline customers for this new engine types because the airline is interested in the best maintenance schedule, so to say. And so they use all the data in real time for that specific engine, not for that engine type, for that specific engine. And now they take all the contracts, and we just do the labor work, have the infrastructure, the hangars, mechanics, and toolings. So this is for the MRO. We experience it for the new engine types. It's very difficult for us to get customers. And now we can move it to the airline. And why would it be different there? If you have all the customer data, real time, why are you not in a position to better offer them stuff than we are? And there are companies out there who, of course, have very good information about the activities of the customer, the travel needs, the travel ideas, the preferences. So what is true for the MRO industry, where we experience it, why is it not true for the airline industry? And we believe it is true for the airline industry, so we have to prepare.
That makes sense. I wanted to ask you a little bit about customer data. I am not a Miles & More member because I live in Los Angeles, but if I lived in Europe,
but you
of course I would be. So let's say I'm a Miles & More member and I fly you guys a lot, and I'm logged in and I buy a ticket from you. What do you know about me?
That's an interesting question. If you're a Miles & More member, we know a bit more about you. So basically, we know everything you gave us. So all your, of course, data. We know your address, your sex, your travel preferences. But we know as well kind of what you do with your miles, for example. And then we can make something out of this. But the funny thing is, if you're not a Miles & More member, we have almost no information. We have hardly the information, for example, which nationality you're of. So it's very difficult for us to give you a very personal customer experience if we know almost nothing. So Miles & More helps us to give you a better personalized experience. And we do a lot of artificial intelligence stuff to get, even from the few information records we have, more, to get more out of it.
Okay, so what do you use AI to do?
We call it PNR extension. So when we get your passenger name record, we have only bits of information. 20%, 30%, we know your nationality. 30, 40%, we know if you're male or female. So we try to expand the information we have with the means of artificial intelligence. So what can we do with your name, with your first name, with your last name? What can we do with addresses we have or stuff like this, so to get more out of this? But the funny thing about this is, now we can do this, and we can enrich the PNR, we get more information, and then we have to react in the physical world, because our business is not only about digital. Our business is physical. We have to move people from A to B with a physical aircraft, with a pilot at least for the next couple of years. And a bit of food.
Only a couple of years.
Hopefully, maybe. So we have to react in the physical sphere. And this is difficult. The concrete example with this information we get, I asked our management team the question, if we have the information 5 days ahead, next week, a flight from Frankfurt to Johannesburg, we have a group of 50 Chinese-speaking people on board with all this artificial intelligence stuff. How quick are we to react and put 5 Chinese-speaking flight attendants on that flight? And the answer was something like 5 months. I said, oh, good. And so it's worthless to have this predictive power if you're not able to react in physical. Same is true with the MRO business. If you're able to predict that a specific aircraft part is going to fail in 10 flight hours, but you need 3 days to get a spare part to that place and 5 days to get a mechanic to that place, it's worthless to predict it. So how can we get the physical reaction time down to the time we are able to predict? And this is true for the airline, but as well for other businesses.
Okay. So earlier this year, I was in Frankfurt. I got a full digital tour. And one of the things one of your colleagues showed me is this algorithm that you have. They say it works like Netflix. It sort of works like Netflix. But if you're a very frequent traveler, Lufthansa believes that it can predict where you want to travel next. And it can tell you, you want to go here, and then send you the offer. Is that still around, and does it even work?
It is still around, and it's a bold vision, and it would be great if we could do this. But obviously, you need a lot of data to do this, and there are companies around who honestly have more information on that, more information of your personal behavior, of your personal preferences and all that stuff. So I'm afraid we are not in the best position to be the first ones offering this.
So what is the biggest mistake the algorithm makes?
It's not, it's the algorithm is, I'm sure that machine learning and all that stuff, that will be a commodity earlier than we don't need pilots anymore. The core thing is about data. So which data do we have about your activities and your preferences? And as you said, you're not a Miles & More member. We don't have that much information, so we can't make it out of this with even the best machine learning stuff. So it all comes down to data. So how can we get more data out of your activities? And the funny thing is, we are one of the few companies who are allowed to fix people for 9 hours to a specific chair. Try this in this room, and the police will be here in 10 minutes or 5 minutes. We are in New York. So fix somebody to his chair, and he will call the police. So we fix them for 10 hours, and they're not allowed to move if we don't allow them to do so, and it's legal. So we know what you do. We know which wine you prefer. We know which movies you watch.
Yep.
We know what you do. And as soon as the aircraft landed, we just erase all the data. This is something we obviously have to change. Because you expect us that we offer you your preferred wine on the flight back. And this is something we are working on.
Okay. Now, a lot of airlines talk about this idea of the flight attendant hands you your preferred wine before you ask it. The data exists somewhere. But there are a lot of questions about this, right? Is it so hard for me to ask for my wine? And is it too creepy if somebody puts down a glass of wine that I didn't order, assuming that I wanted it?
Yeah. I do not drink any wine. And yesterday on my flight to, my beautiful flight was LH400 to New York, I had a little chat with the flight attendant. She asked me, "Are you going?" I said, "Oh, to a digital conference." She said, "Oh." And then she stopped by and talked for 10 minutes about digital with me. And it was very impressive. But what she said is, and we got all these iPads. Every flight attendant has an iPad, a personal iPad, so it has all the information about you and your name and all that stuff. And I said, "I dislike when you greet me with my name, because that's what they do." And she said, "Yeah, but most people like it." And that's exactly the thing. Some people like it, some people don't like it. Some people like it when they get their wine, and some people don't like it because they want a tea or something else. So this is part of your preference system as well. So how can we learn about this as well? So this is important. I personally like it when I'm as anonymous as I can be. So people wrong job, but so it's part of your preferences how you deal with this, and we have to know it, and then we can serve you best.
But technologically speaking, it's not that hard for them to put the right wine or scotch in front of me because I asked for it last time? Or it is?
No, technologically not, but still you have, it's like the colleague from MGM just said, it's in the end, it's a people's business. You're up there with 15 flight attendants, and they do what they do, and they take the information or they don't. And so it's not only about having technology, but it's having the right people in place with the right mindset. And this is where we are in a very good position with our flight crews, because we train them especially for this kind of customer experience stuff. But always you find somebody who is maybe not at his best date that day.
Okay. I had a similar question and answer session recently with the CEO of SAS, and I asked him what he was looking forward to in the future. And he said that he has an employee at headquarters in Stockholm who has a microchip embedded in his hand. And the reason for this is to test to see whether that will speed boarding at one gate at the airport. It's just a test. And the CEO said, "Look, I know we're never going to do this, but it's fun," and the guy wanted to test it. And I know that you have some moonshots as well, things that you're working on. What's the most innovative thing that Lufthansa Group is working on right now, even if it never makes its way to an airplane?
That's a really good question, because there are some of them. We don't put any microchips into the hands of our people, at least as far as I know. But maybe the CIO is doing that. But no, I don't think so. And we are heavily thinking about how to speed up boarding. That's true, but the microchip won't help, because the people just they mess it up every time. But one thing we are really curious about is, like I said with the engine. Take this example again. Today every airline has maintenance schedules which are done for part numbers, so engine types or types of autopilots or whatever. So groups of things, and we do maintenance schedules 6 months in advance. So we have a 6 months revision cycle. So we do it for groups of things 6 months in advance. And what will happen is, and for the engine it already happened, it will shrink down to this very engine in real time. So we move from having plans for in 6 months and groups of things to this and now. And now we think about every type of plan in our company where we do something for groups of people, customer segments, with 18 months planning time ahead. So network planning. So what is our summer schedule next year is already done. Now we work on the winter schedule 18, 19. So we have 18-month planning time, lead time for planning our flight plans in advance, and we do it on customer segments. How would it look like if we do it for you personally? What is your preference to fly in real time? That's far away, a moonshot, but we are thinking about this. And what would the system look like? What does our infrastructure have to look like? How have the regulative bodies have to act on this? Because you can't start an airplane tomorrow. You have to have your slots and all that stuff. But how would it look like if those plans go from the art of planning as we know it today to the future planning real time on an individual base? And then you can go through all our huge planning systems we have, network planning, revenue management, yield management, all that stuff, crew planning. So how would they look in a digital world? And then there are a lot of fundamental changes to our industry, not only to our company, but to our industry. So I always, when I go on stage, normally I play the song of REM, it's the end of the world as we know it, and I didn't have a slide up the end of planning as we know it, because I think that all those planning systems will change. And our airline is based a lot on planning systems. We're very proud with all the historical knowledge, all the algorithms, all our engineers put their knowledge in there, but this will change dramatically.
Okay. You started that question by saying something very simple, that the airline boarding process is broken, that you know it. Most people in this room probably know it, although I bet you all board first. How do you fix this? Is there a technological, is there a digital solution, or are we all stuck with boarding this way forever?
Yeah, me too. But the best idea is to always buy business class, because then we board you first. So when 170 people on the plane are in business class, we have to rethink that. I lately had a talk with one guy here from New York. The company is called Listener, and they do ultrasonic sound communication stuff. And one use case he presented, and a cool company, cool guy, and one use case he presented to me was, what about having your boarding pass that you just can move through the gate, and without taking your iPhone, putting on, scanning your boarding pass. And same thing, it all ends up in the jetty where you get stuck. So we again experiment with artificial intelligence. How can we improve the boarding system, and how can we improve when we call whom to go to the gate? So a lot of people are sitting in a lounge, and why do we call them all the same time to go to the gate? Why can't we, when we know where they are, when we know how long they have to go to the gate, why don't we kind of call you individually using your app? So this is something we're working on as well.
So does that mean the solution is a lot more simple than iris scans or fingerprints?
It's not identifying you quickly. It's getting those 50 people who just have to stuff their stuff in the overhead bins and remove their jackets and all that stuff. We have to kind of take them, debunch them, if that's an English word, but I like it. So we have to debunch them somehow.
So this is not a digital question, but on the phone, you told me that it takes a lot longer to board an A320 in the winter than the summer, right?
Yeah, because of the jackets. Everybody has his jackets and his scarves, and so it's a horrible time. But
how much longer is the difference?
I have no idea, but it's definitely, it feels like hours, but it's not.
All right, a broad question for you, back to digital a little bit here, but I'm just curious about this. Why is the airline industry so risk averse? People just don't want to take the same chances as they do in other industries.
I think you can answer the question best yourself, because whenever you talk to those digital native people, they always talk about fail fast, die cheap. So would you love to talk me with our mechanics about, go and experiment a bit. You try a new way of fixing that tire. Fail fast, die cheap, not you, but the others. It's not. It's not. So it's in the core of our processes, in the core of our company is avoid risk in everything you do, because that's why people trust us. They trust us with their lives. So we can't fail fast. So we have to keep this, but as well have a part of our company where we go and experiment, where we go and fail fast and all that thing. So that's the reason why we removed the experimental part out of the core of Lufthansa Group, and we set up our innovation hub in Berlin. And those guys are there. There's none of the employees there is a former Lufthansa employee. They're all hired from the outside, from venture capitalists, from incubators, from everywhere. And their job is to do this. Their job is to talk with the core organization, but we have to keep the core organization risk-averse.
And you like to keep the team in Berlin as far away from Frankfurt?
They want to stay in Berlin, and I fully understand them. No, Berlin is for Germany, it's nothing compared to California, but for us, it's our little tiny hub of digital business. So it's the right place to be, and it's a lot of people from Frankfurt are traveling, from our company are traveling to Berlin and visit them and get inspiration and go back, and this is the right way to do it. Because we operate planes, it's not a hassle to bring them from Frankfurt to Berlin.
Great.
And it will be better maybe a couple of months.
Well, we have a couple of minutes for audience questions, so I'm going to grab this iPad here and take a look and see if we have anything. And we don't. Oh, but I can read back here. What is the objective of Lufthansa's digital hub in Berlin? I guess we just answered that one, but maybe you can answer the second part. Do you intend it to be a venture capital investor like JetBlue?
There's no big tradition in Germany with companies, traditional companies being venture capitalists like maybe in the US. So, but we fully understand that we have to grow inorganically, that we have to acquire companies. And so we did this already, and we are going to grow the innovation hub. Today it's a tiny thing, it's 15 people. But we are going to grow them, and we are growing them in that direction as well. So we want to be able to invest in companies which are kind of adding to our digital business, and we will be hopefully there next year. So this is something which will be part of our digital activities.
Great. I bet we can squeeze one more question if it comes up behind us.
Okay.
And you answer quickly. What are you doing to embellish the picture you have of a traveler?
What does embellish mean? Debunch?
What are you doing to get to know your customers better? How are you learning?
Okay. So I think it's identity is key. There's in Germany, the big corporates just put their money and their knowledge together to get a kind of European identity, to have something against the US, Google's and Facebook identity stuff. So this is a huge initiative. So identity for us, to identify our customers, is the first thing. And like we talked about it, it's quite easy if we have your Miles & More account, which you should, even if you live not here in Germany. Good. And but we do a lot of activities there as well for one reason, because it's not only identity, but I firmly believe that identity, loyalty, and payment, they will move to one. So it's not we just care for loyalty in Miles & More, and then we care for identity somewhere else, and payment again somewhere else. But my vision of the future is that identity, payment, and loyalty will be one. And so we have to be in that business, because if we lose the payment part to somebody else, then we lose the interface to the customer. And that's the reason why we are investing heavily in this, why we do a lot of things there, and hopefully we'll have something which convinces a customer to trust us with his identity and his personal data in the future as well.
Great. Well, thank you for the time, and this was a great conversation.
Thank you.